France is preparing for war. Macron is introducing voluntary military service.
The only way to avoid danger is to prepare for it.
Security threat. Latvia urges its neighbors to dismantle railway tracks to Russia.
The railway to Russia may be dismantled and destroyed. In
Solovyov studio, everything is as usual. Nuclear threat strictly by the playbook.
On Friday, when it's a vibe, is Friday convenient? They're from 4 to 7 in the morning. There, in Rotterdam, right? As I understand, there are oil terminals and all that. Are you waiting for Oreshnya? Yes.
The Russian Federation is going offline. Moscow and several regions have lost connection and internet access. Let's
move on. They'll set up the internet. We don't even need your internet.
The end of an era. Russia is no longer a space power.
The only site for manned missions has collapsed. Now in the Kremlin, there's simply nowhere to launch people from. For the first time since Gagarin,
Russification, Putin style, North Korea, get ready.
In North Korea, mandatory Russian language classes will begin from the 4th grade.
So friends, right now we're going to discuss the signing of a peace treaty and then only security guarantees. Why is it that the United States is proposing exactly this concept? We'll also talk about the hypothesis being reported by foreign media that Trump is sending Witkoff with the idea of the US recognizing Crimea in exchange for Putin ending the war. Spoiler, I don't think this will change anything. And we'll also talk about how the clouds have gathered due to the scandal over the intercepted conversation involving both Witkoff and Ushakov. And of course, we'll discuss the news that has just broken in the last few moments. This is the dismissal of the head of the office of the president of Ukraine, Andriy Yermak. How this will change the attitude toward Ukraine among our international partners. We'll discuss everything after the segment. In the
corruption scandal that has erupted in Ukraine, known as Mingichgat, US Vice President J.D. Vance saw a window of opportunity. This was reported by The Atlantic. Allegedly, Vance believed that the Ukrainian authorities found themselves in an extremely weak position and therefore would instantly agree to the 28 points, which, as has now been confirmed, were written in Moscow. Meanwhile, the New York Times reports that the new special envoy Dan Driscoll, who also appeared at Vance's suggestion, was promoting the so-called peace plan among European diplomats by threatening them with the overwhelming power of the Russians, which was ready to be unleashed not only on Ukrainians.
He said, look, if before Russia was making missiles on the fly and immediately firing them at Ukraine, now the Russians have a stockpile. This is clearly a Russian narrative, and it is obviously not a story coming from Ukraine. It's a story invented by the Russians and handed over precisely to the negotiators, those close to Vance and Witkoff.
Meanwhile, the Russian Foreign Ministry announced that they do not see Europe at the negotiating table for peace in Ukraine, and Putin, in his usual manner, explained when the hostilities would end.
Ukrainian troops will withdraw from the territories they occupy. That's when the fighting will stop. If they don't leave, we will achieve this by military means.
The Americans failed to get the peace plan on Trump's desk by Thanksgiving. But according to media reports, they haven't abandoned the idea, and supposedly they promised to consider security guarantees for the Ukrainians after President Zelensky signs the document.
It's abundantly clear that 4 full years of this devastating, full-scale invasion have profoundly impacted.
But having lived through 4 years of full-scale invasion, I understand that even when there were security guarantees back in the days of the Budapest Memorandum, none of the parties that pledged to uphold them actually did so in the event of an attack on Ukraine. Now they're talking about an agreement without any guarantees that in 6 months, a year, or 5 years, we won't find ourselves in an even more difficult war for Ukrainian society. That's definitely not a sufficient argument. Here, the Americans, if it's true, want to push both sides. But somehow it turns out that they're pushing Ukraine much more actively.
Meanwhile, after the scandal with the intercepted phone conversation between Witkoff, Dmitriev, and Ushakov, the White House is pretending that nothing happened. Donald Trump is busy pardoning a turkey.
I just wanted to take a moment to tell you that this particular message is incredibly important and holds significant weight. It's truly wonderful that you are definitely here, present, and accounted for, right in this beautiful and serene park setting. That's exceptionally good news, as we absolutely do not want to cause any damage whatsoever to this magnificent and precious drum, which is a truly valuable instrument. Thank you very much. Wonderful job. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone, guys.
Some senators are demanding that Donald remove Witkoff, who is literally suspected of working for Moscow. Some analysts believe that the leak of the phone conversations is actually a demonstration of the struggle between two sides for a place closer to Trump, with Vice President Vance on one side and Secretary of State Rubio on the other. By the way, the latter did not react in any way to the information about Witkoff's conversations, but only to journalists' reports that things are not so smooth and unified within the Republican camp. However, analysts believe that it is unlikely Trump will actually punish Witkoff.
Witkoff is someone from his business circle, from real estate. He also built hotels, including in New York. They're basically cut from the same cloth. They speak a language that is mutually understandable. There isn't a drop of ideology in them. You can't spot any ideas in them at all. Neither of them cares at all whether it's Republicans or Democrats. Only one thing matters to them: interest. I think that, as one of my well-informed interlocutors said, when Witkoff came and told Donald Trump that we have a chance to get $150 billion from Russian money for some kind of joint fund, I think Trump said, "Go for it, go for it." Wonderful. $150 billion is exactly the kind of money you don't just find lying around. This, I think, is the main point here. Trump behaves like a businessman, not like a statesman or a diplomat. He has his own interests. He strictly follows his own interests.
Very soon, American politicians will enter the race for voters' favor. Senate elections are scheduled for November of next year. Currently, the Republicans have a 3-seat advantage in this government body. Just the other day, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who until recently was a staunch supporter of Donald Trump, resigned, and journalist Don Bacon has told reporters he intends to follow her example. This means that Donald's party risks losing its majority even before the midterm elections.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
Crimea is under fire. A chemical plant is burning.
Russian channels are in a panic. Air defense can't cope. In
Russian Saratov, there's chaos at the oil refinery. Everything is on fire. The occupiers are trying to advance into the northern part of Pokrovsk, but the Ukrainian armed forces are fighting back. Additionally, Ukrainian defense forces have regained control in the area of Huliaipole in the Zaporizhzhia region. Explosions are being heard in Chechnya. Drones struck the Kadyrovites' base in Grozny.
Attack drones hit the Kadyrovites' bases directly. They struck the Akhmatseva unit of the Russian National Guard.
Putin is issuing ultimatums and has no intention of negotiating.
If Ukrainian troops withdraw from the occupied territories, then Russia will cease hostilities. If they don't withdraw, the army will achieve its objectives by military means.
Their own against their own, the occupiers shot each other.
9 servicemen were killed. According to eyewitnesses, the fire was directed toward the unit's command.
So friends, at the current pace of advance, Russia will reach the borders of Donetsk region. In August 2027, just imagine, this is what the Institute for the Study of War is reporting. More details about what is happening on the front line, about the dangers and successes of Ukraine's defense forces, are coming up right now in the report. And afterwards, we'll discuss all the details in the studio.
Unknown drones have once again attacked the Novokuybishevsk oil refinery in Russia's Samara region, according to Russian media. According to local residents, about 10 explosions were heard. Eyewitnesses also reported seeing bright flashes in the sky. That's pretty wild. Putin is stockpiling missiles to shell Europe. This warning was delivered by U.S. Army Minister Dan Driscoll during a meeting with European diplomats in Kyiv. This was reported by the New York Times.
So, is Putin shelling Europe or not? That's a very complicated question. If yesterday Russian drones landed in Romania, the Ministry of Defense and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Romania are scratching their heads. They say it's just a coincidence. If a K-55 missile flies into Polish territory, K-55 is like the 1950 series, similar to the Ki-555 and Ki-101 missiles that the Russians used to shell Ukraine, but only the Ki-555 index refers to a missile with a nuclear warhead. But it entered Poland with a dummy warhead. A dummy instead of a nuclear warhead. There was no nuclear charge there, thank God. But it's impossible to determine in flight whether there was a nuclear charge or not. No one can do that.
According to journalists regarding the growing missile threat from Russia, Triscal mentioned this in the context of discussing the American peace plan. European diplomats understood this as a hint from Washington that it is necessary to achieve an end to the war in Ukraine as soon as possible. In turn, Europe is considering retaliatory actions against Russia regarding drone incursions and sabotage, reports Politico, citing sources.
Europeans are responding, but they are responding very slowly. And Europeans are taking a reactive stance. A position of reaction to those provocations, to those jabs, with which Russia brutally and viciously attacks them.
But Trump himself doesn't seem to have a clear vision of the world he wants to push Ukraine toward. That's why they're asking our country to sign a peace agreement without providing any security guarantees.
Well, obviously this means a change in rhetoric. In fact, both in America, I would certainly say, and throughout Europe, but more recently, the United States administration, at least through its verbal communications, has been making its intentions and expectations exceptionally clear to its partners. NATO, that is, that they are kind of NATO members, but NATO is here and America is over here. It's not the same thing. Well, the Americans are forcing Europe to take some action.
Russia, it seems, is preparing for nuclear war. Russian scientists have developed a unified state standard for detecting areas affected by radioactive, chemical, or biological contamination. The new GOST will come into effect on February 1st, 2026. But as for his own soldiers, it seems Putin doesn't spare them at all. And just in the Zaporizhzhia direction alone, he is losing 100 to 200 men a day, having changed the tactics of the occupying army's advance. Now, instead of the usual infiltration tactic of sending 2 or 3 soldiers to a position, they send in 10 infantrymen at once, which, frankly, is where their existence ends. Russia has decided to change its drone tactics and has begun using reusable UAVs. One of these new models is the hexacopter Night Witch. It has a payload capacity of about 20 kilograms and a flight range of 40 minutes. Another new development is the quadcopter Bulldog 13, which has a 4-kilogram payload, modular strike packages, and electronics that allow it to counter Ukrainian radio jamming systems.
Reusable UAVs of various types have been used before. The same FPV drones with drop mechanisms. This is a reusable UAV. Mavics for reconnaissance and observation, these are reusable. So, to say that some kind of game changer has appeared, I wouldn't say that.
At the same time, Ukraine has signed an agreement with the United Kingdom that will allow us to produce Ukrainian interceptors there, which have proven their effectiveness in countering Shaheds. It has been announced that mass production is planned, which could reach several thousand units per month.